5 days have now gone by since the awful murders at the Reiner family home in Brentwood. Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were killed in their own bedroom, and fresh details keep coming out that still shock everyone who hears them. A new forensic report lays out exactly when police believe their son Nick attacked them and describes the deadly wounds, including one long, deep cut across Rob's throat that looks almost like a deliberate message. Every new piece of information makes the whole night feel even more painful and terrifying. People are still trying to understand how this could happen. It seems to trace back to a big fight at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. Witnesses say Nick was acting strange and unsteady that night. After the murders, he apparently walked away from the house like nothing had happened, checked into a hotel, and is now using money from his parents' estate to pay Alan Jackson, one of the best-known defense lawyers in the country, to fight the charges against him. It's hard for most people to accept that someone could act with that kind of coldness. Something inside Nick seems to have completely broken. Police started putting the timeline together from a tense family dinner that included Nick. According to the charges filed by the Los Angeles County District Attorney, the attack took place sometime between midnight and early morning, most likely between 1:27 a.m. and 6 a.m. Nick left his own room quietly, walked into the main house where his parents were sleeping in the master bedroom, and let himself in with keys he already had. There were no broken windows or forced doors because he knew the house perfectly. Once he finished, Nick left the property right away. Nobody knows if he was panicking inside or completely calm. Around 4 a.m., he showed up at the front desk of the Pierside Hotel in Santa Monica, about a 20-minute drive from Brentwood. He paid for a simple room, either with cash or a card, and didn't do anything that made the staff remember him. In those few hours at the hotel, he didn't make calls or sleep much. He just seemed to be waiting or wandering in his own head after what he had just done. The bodies were found at about 3:40 p.m. that same day. A massage therapist arrived for a scheduled appointment with Rob and Michelle. When nobody answered the door, she called their daughter Romy. Romy hurried over with her boyfriend, opened the house, and found her farmer's body in the master bedroom. She called 911 in a panic. Officers arrived and quickly discovered Michelle's body nearby. While the family was facing this nightmare, Nick was still free for several more hours. Around 9 p.m., a security camera at an Arco gas station near Exposition Park, close to USC, caught Nick buying a sports drink. He looked nervous, glancing around a lot, but he stayed calm enough to pay and leave. Just minutes later, around 9:15 p.m., LAPD officers working with U.S. Marshals moved in and arrested him. He didn't fight or say a word when they put the handcuffs on. The video shows a young man who looks exhausted and empty. Forensic teams used rigor mortis and body temperature to estimate time of death. By the time first responders got there, the bodies had already started to stiffen. Their best guess is that Rob and Michelle died roughly 3 to 4 hours before they were found. Investigators think Nick might have washed up at the house or taken a shower at the hotel, but some blood could still have been on his clothes or skin. Hotel cameras recorded him walking around Santa Monica. The weapon was probably something already in the kitchen, a regular knife or a meat cleaver. Because Nick knew exactly where everything was, he didn't need to bring anything special. The bedroom ended up covered in blood from dozens of brutal wounds. The official cause of death for both Rob and Michelle was their throats being cut. At first, people only heard about one slash, but the autopsy showed multiple deep stabs as well. Professor Joseph Scott Morgan, a forensic expert at Jacksonville State University and host of the show Body Bags, explained that so many stab wounds show clear intent. Attacks with knives happen up close, take a lot of strength, and usually come fast, one after another. When there are long cuts and deep punctures together, experts call it overkill. It means the attack went on for a while and was extremely violent on purpose. Professor Morgan also pointed out that cutting someone's throat is almost never quick or clean like in the movies. The person usually has to be held down hard against the bed or floor so the attacker can lean in with their full weight and pull the blade across. That makes it even more horrifying to think about. These facts make the last minutes of Rob and Michelle's lives feel even heavier for their family and for everyone following the case. Early reports say the couple may have still been in bed asleep when it started. If that's true, the killer had to know the layout of the house, where the bedroom was, what time they usually went to sleep, and how deeply they slept. Attacking someone in their own bed is a total invasion of safety, possibly even climbing onto the mattress to get enough force behind each blow. Just picturing it is chilling. The room was drenched in blood. The neck has major arteries, so when they're cut, blood sprays hard and far. Every additional stab made it worse until there was no chance left. All the evidence points straight to Nick, the only other person living in that house who could walk into their parents' bedroom without anyone thinking twice. Another shocking part, Nick is paying his high-priced lawyer with money from his parents' own estate. Almost right away, people started asking how Nick could afford Alan Jackson, who only takes the biggest, most complicated cases. Nick never really had his own career. He lived off his family's money and once worked with his dad on a movie back in 2016. Alan Jackson has lowered his fees before, for example in the Karen Reed case, but even then the total bill came to around $10 million. Most people believe Nick's defense will cost even more because of how serious the charges are and how much attention the case is getting. When reporters asked Alan Jackson outside court who was paying, he only said, "I can't comment on who is covering the fees." That silence started all kinds of guesses. Some thought he might be working for free because the case is so famous. Then, on December 18, 2025, people close to the family revealed the truth. The lawyer is being paid out of Rob and Michelle's estate, which is believed to be worth about $200 million. The decision was reportedly coming from the surviving children, Jake, Romy, and Tracy Reiner. Even though they are broken-hearted and angry, they want Nick to have the strongest possible defense, focused on mental illness, hoping he ends up in a secure psychiatric hospital instead of prison for life. They feel that's the most humane outcome, and maybe what Rob and Michelle would have wanted for their son. California law says if Nick is convicted, he loses any right to inherit from his parents. But right now, before a verdict, other family members or the people handling the estate can still use some of the money for his legal costs. Some lawyers say that's perfectly legal at this stage. Others argue the estate managers could refuse if they wanted to protect the money. So far, neither the family nor the court has officially confirmed exactly where the funds are coming from, so questions keep swirling. Nick has already made his first court appearance. He faces 2 counts of first-degree murder, plus extra charges because there were 2 victims. He's being held at the Los Angeles County Jail. In court, he wore the standard blue jumpsuit they give defendants. It's both for safety and a clear sign of how far he has fallen. Alan Jackson stood next to him. The judge banned live cameras, so the room felt tense and closed off. Jackson asked to delay the official reading of the charges so Nick could decide how he wants to plead. The judge agreed and set the next hearing for January 6, 2026. The only time the public heard Nick's voice was when the judge asked him if he agreed to give up his right to a speedy trial. Nick answered clearly, "Yes, Your Honor, I do."
That was it. No emotion, no extra words. The hearing ended so fast it left everyone stunned. January 7th is now the day everyone is waiting for. The short, cold courtroom moment only reminded people that this story is nowhere near finished. Before we look ahead to that trial, let's go back to some of the worst things investigators learned. It all seems to start with the party at Conan O'Brien's house on December 13th. Nick Reiner has been fighting addiction for most of his life. He was born in 1993, and by the time he was 15, around 2008, he was already trying heroin and cocaine. Growing up as the son of famous director Rob Reiner and the grandson of comedy legend Carl Reiner put huge pressure on him, pressure he never wanted. His family saw the problem early and sent him to treatment while he was still a teenager.
When they finally tried tough love, setting firm rules, Nick left and lived on the streets for years, bouncing between states like Maine, New Jersey, and Texas. He called those his darkest years. He almost died several times. In 2015, at age 22, things looked better for a while. He got sober enough to work with his father on the movie Being Charlie, which told a lot of his own story. Living at home again and making the film brought father and son closer for a time, but the clean period didn't last. By 2018, he was using heroin heavily again and had a cocaine-induced heart attack on an aeroplane. During one bad binge, he trashed his parents' guest house, breaking TVs, lights, and furniture. After that, they made him leave and go back to treatment. Starting around 2020, they let him move into the main house again, hoping close supervision would help. In the months before the murders, Rob and Michelle were extremely worried about his mental health and drug use. His story is a tough reminder that even with unlimited love and money, some battles can't be won. Now people are wondering what offense strategy Alan Jackson will use. Hotel staff in Santa Monica told police Nick seemed very high after the murders, but being on drugs that night doesn't automatically mean he was legally insane. At most, it might show he had trouble controlling himself in that moment. In California, being high usually isn't enough to beat a first-degree murder charge, especially when someone grabs a knife and uses it over and over. The fight at Conan's party and the way the attack happened both look like there was planning involved. If Nick is convicted of first-degree murder with special circumstances, killing 2 people, he could get life without parole. The evidence is strong: video, possible DNA, blood traces, and the fact that Rob and Michelle were elderly while Nick was only 32. Self-defense doesn't fit. Some cases turn on whether the person really meant to kill, but the number of wounds and the throat cuts make accidental death almost impossible to argue. This trial will probably happen in late 2026 or 2027, and most people expect it to go all the way, no plea deal. Prosecutor Nathan Hochman will use both the physical proof and the heartbreaking family story. Witnesses might include Conan O'Brien, Larry David, Billy Crystal, and other big Hollywood names. Their testimony could turn the courtroom into a real-life tragedy played out in public. On Saturday night, December 13th, 2025, Conan O'Brien's house in West Los Angeles was full of lights, music, and famous guests relaxing at his yearly Christmas party. Rob and Michelle Reiner came as they always did, but this time they brought Nick. They had been worried about leaving him home alone. His behavior had been getting worse for months, old addictions coming back, wandering at night, scary late-night calls that woke them up. They hoped the party might cheer him up and they could keep him close. Nick wasn't on the guest list, but Rob texted Conan and the host said, of course, bring him. At first, everything seemed fine. Rob thanked Conan with a hug, Michelle smiled in her dark dress, but Nick hung back in a worn grey hoodie with the hood up. While everyone else mingled and laughed, he stood alone, eyes darting around.
Soon, guests noticed him acting oddly. He would walk right up to people and ask flat, intense questions. What's your name? Your full name? Are you famous? Some answered politely and walked away. Others whispered that he seemed creepy. Jane Fonda later said he stood too close and stared without blinking. It gave her chills. The worst moment came with Bill Hader. Nick broke into a private conversation and asked the same questions. Bill stayed polite and said he was talking to someone, but Nick just stood there silently, staring, until he suddenly turned and walked off, clearly angry. Rob saw things getting out of hand. He took Nick to a quiet hallway and started raising his voice. Guests in other rooms could hear the argument. Rob told his son he was making people uncomfortable and had to stop. Michelle tried to calm both of them, but Nick shouted back. The fight went on long enough to kill the happy mood of the whole party. Afterward, Rob and Michelle decided to leave. They looked worried and sad as they glanced back at Nick. One guest remembered them seeming to say with their eyes, "We love you, but we have to go right now." Nick did not leave with them. He stayed longer, face dark, mood impossible to read. Many people left that night feeling uneasy, like something bad was coming. A few hours later, Rob and Michelle were dead in their Brentwood home. This case is still unfolding, and it hurts to follow. From the exact hours of the attack to Nick's arrest to the quiet, empty look on his face in court, every detail tells a story of deep family pain inside a house that used to feel safe. All the years of love, second chances, and desperate attempts to pull Nick back from addiction now live only in memories. Did Rob and Michelle realize in their final moments that nothing they tried had been enough? Could anyone have pictured so much love ending this way? These questions stay with the Reiner children and with everyone watching. Thank you for staying with us as we cover this difficult story. Please leave a comment with your thoughts and feelings, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any updates on this case or other major trials. Your voice matters. It helps keep Rob and Michelle's memory alive.